So I want to thank everybody, and I'm here to answer questions. And already it's been some great ones. So yes, but I won't answer any questions. I'm just going to have you ask them. Okay. So go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes.
I read also that the Eucharistic miracles that have the same DNA of the principle of Shroud Q.
Yeah. It's male DNA, but here's something that's interesting about the DNA. I'm glad you brought that up. Is that they can't profile the DNA, and that makes sense because what they mean is that with 13andMe, all these new DNA test kits, you can see what your ancestry is, ancestry.com and all that. They could say that you're from Lebanon and you're related to. They can't profile the DNA, and that makes sense because it was Mary contributed DNA, and then obviously God contributed the other DNA. So it makes sense that they can't profile it. There's no other DNA that comes anywhere near matching it. But it is male DNA, and she certainly didn't contribute the Y. So that comes from God. So and how it happened, again, we'll find out on the other side of the veil, right? And but yeah, they can't. It's very interesting. All these, they try to profile it, and they're not able to profile it. So the one in Poland, the one in Mexico. So that's a great question. Again, the one from Lanciano, it's so old, it's hard to get good material from that one. But they could still say that it was type AB blood and male DNA. So all these are male DNA, but they can't profile it. We don't know what where it comes from, but we think we know where it comes from. Yes.
Last organ to perish when the person dies?
Well, at 18 days is the heart is beating. 18 days the heart is beating, but there's a lot of theories about why, and why is it type ABB? Because it's AB is because it's the universal recipient, right? Type O is universal donor, and type AB would be the universal recipient. But again, that's getting into we're trying to second guess why God did it the way he did. He clearly wanted us to have this evidence today because we have this scientific, that everything can be explained by science. We can see the effects of these supernatural events. I mean, you can't explain this any other, there's no scientific explanation for it, and yet it's there, and it's been verified by science that you have this heart tissue, and you have, and that the image on the shroud can't be replicated today. It looks like it's a nuclear image from pure laser light energy, and so again, he's the light. And it's funny. We did the Our Father. Remember, give us our daily bread. Yeah. If you think about the Our Father, everything before the daily bread is spiritual, and everything after the daily bread is spiritual. He meant spiritual bread. He didn't mean the bread, because what's in John 6? You perish. You perish. The manna that you ate in the desert, you perish. I am the bread of life. He's showing us he's the bread of life. And everyone knows what Bethlehem means, right? Yeah. Right. House of bread. And Jesus was born in a manger. And what's a manger? A feeding trough. So there's all these connections with the biblical scriptures. He's been telling us since the dawn of time that he is the bread of life. And that he's showing us in scientific terms that he is the bread of life. And so, it's just a tragedy that 2/3 of our Catholics don't see this. And that's why we're out here doing this, is getting this word out. And so I'm happy to come and talk anywhere else that you guys want me to talk. And the more the merrier. So yeah, over there. Either one.
So you said earlier that it took us, to have advanced photographic machines to get the picture, and and then use like 3D other material to get that thing. And you also mentioned that in 500 AD, there were pictures matching the 3D and the photographic things that we got right now. So, but back in 500 AD, they didn't have photographic machines. How do they extract the picture from the Shroud to?
Great question. So again, remember, the image on the Shroud of Turin is not a picture. See, that's what happens with. I actually have a debate at the University of Idaho in about 3 weeks. It's this guy that's made a quote unquote a replica of the Shroud of Turin, and he did dyes and all this and put it on glass. We keep getting mixed up. This isn't a photograph. It's just that when you take a photograph of the image on the Shroud, there's an image on the Shroud of Turin on non-photographic material. Linen is a non-photographic material. And there's an image that when you take a picture of it, it comes back as a negative. So back to your question about what happened in 520. They looked at this. And he sat there and drew. Because they didn't have photo. They just drew. That coin that was made by him looking at the shroud and drawing it. They drew it, and then they made mosaics out of it. They made coins out of it. They had this as a model. It's like how St. Faustina used a model of a live priest to help her draw, to help the artist do the image of the Divine Mercy. They had, you have a model. That's what happens today. They have a model, and They were looking at this was the model. It's not a photograph, it's the linen. They were looking at the real linen shroud. No, you can see it. It's faded over time, but see, like what I was saying when I was there in 2015, you can see it. When you get that close, you can see it. Yeah, but great question. But it's been faded. It was exposed to the air for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it pops out when you take a image. So yeah, you're right. That's a great question. It pops out when you take a picture of it. That's what happened, right? Yeah, yeah. Because of the contrast, the negative versus the positive. Yeah, yeah.
Were able to extract Jesus' DNA after this many years. To my understanding, DNA would die after 10 years.
Correct, just like the white cells would die after, yeah. And again, it's out of white cells. Again, all we know is that's there. And the issue is we got to be careful because there's so many people have touched the Shroud of Turin over the centuries. That's why it's also really difficult to profile too, because there's been it's been contaminated by people's DNA basically. So it's really hard to get to the real DNA in there on the shroud. Now on these Eucharistic miracles, they've not been handled so much, so it's easier to get to that. But you remember we're looking at something that's 2,000 years old. People have handled it, and it's been in a fire and this, that, and the other. So it's just amazing that there is. But yeah, it's a great question. Don't know why it's there, but obviously God wanted us to be there so that we could see that there's this parallel. It's there. Yeah.
So I know that evidence is irrefutable. We all know that it's Jesus. But who has come close to pinpointing the true identity of who this person is, in fact, Jesus? Like, has anyone come close to saying this is in fact?
Well, yeah, that's why we went through the circumstantial. Great question. That's why we went through the circumstantial evidence. So if we can date the shroud, and again, nothing's ever, like I remember we talked about, there's probability and possibility, right? It's improbable that someone could have done all these things, put it together to make it look like it came from the first century, unless it really was, Occam's razor, unless it really was from the first century. Otherwise it would take aliens visiting Earth at the year 33, coming back 20 years later, going to Odessa in 525, and it goes on. It goes through time and space. How can you replicate over 2,000 years? What's the simplest explanation? God did it. Something beyond our capabilities had to do this because it would have to be a conspiracy since the day Christ died. We're gonna do this. We're gonna fake everybody out that he didn't really die. So basically what it is if we have evidence, we can now date it back to the first century. We now have an image that we can't recreate today. It's got type AB blood, and now we have these modern Eucharistic miracles that have type AB blood. The logical conclusion is that, gosh, they're related, yeah.